Hey, hello everybody. This is Dr. Susie from the Real Life Genius Show. And today we're going to be talking about, is he a bad boyfriend? Also, it's part of a series that we have that have to do with being a narcissist or suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. So all those personalities that are impossible to please, you see them in relationships, you see them at work. So today we're going to be talking about the different kinds of controlling perfectionism. I'm going to go through some of the types and explain some of them. And of course, I'm going to give you a quiz to take once you think of that person that you believe has narcissistic personality disorder. Who knows, maybe it's you too, right? It could be you. Are you suffering from narcissistic personality disorder? And you can take the quiz with me during the video and see if you come out with the type that either you or this other person is. So let's begin. I'm going to give you some information and I hope you find it useful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. My channel is Real Life Genius, and here we go. All right, so why are you here? Why are you here? So there's a saying that perfectionists are never happy because things are rarely, if ever, perfect. Even so, many people still constantly seek perfection. So this video is not all about perfectionists. However, it's about the kind who not only drive themselves toward unrealistic goals, but also drive others towards those goals. Sometimes we call them control freaks, micromanagers, demanding. Sometimes they can be abusive. We call, you can have an abusive partner, or we all have heard the term helicopter parent. And also a lot of workaholics. They can also be into the stream controlling perfectionists. So if you have such a person, for a teacher or a supervisor or a romantic partner or a family member, even a co-worker that keeps nagging you, or you have a feeling that you are never good enough, you might be in the presence of a controlling perfectionist. And I like to use the term controlling perfectionist because as we go through the types, you will learn that even though we tend to think as narcissistic personality disorders as people that don't care, and I have seen plenty of videos online in which, they're talking about, how they're mean, they're awful, they're haters, and, all the negative aspects. The truth is that there are a lot of different types of narcissistic personality disorders, and some of the types don't know consciously that they're doing that, and we're going to explain why that is. So interestingly, most Americans tend to consider someone who strives to be perfect or someone who aspires to be orderly and organized in positive terms. So we can all see traits in both people that at work that are like that, and we take that as a positive, right? So there's nothing really wrong with that. I mean, there's people that are at work that want to be at the top of their game. They work hard. They set high standards for everybody and themselves. But also they're driving everybody else crazy, right? They expect a lot from other people. And so they all want to be accomplished. So obviously we have to be proud of their organizational skills, their orderliness, their devotion to work. Those are really positive aspects. But in order to answer the question whether somebody is a narcissistic personality or not, we have to look beyond the positive traits to the stream. So we're going to be talking, when you're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, you're talking about a stream that is taken. So you might agree that self-esteem and self-confidence are healthy personality traits. However, when we exaggerate these traits to a point where the person becomes egocentric, narcissistic, right? We use that word, grandiose, then we're dealing with something entirely different. So, two with perfectionism and control. So one thing is to direct your own life, but quite another to try to control everyone around you, or to demand that everyone has to march to your tune. Now, if you're here, it's because you're struggling in a relationship in which you feel the other person perceives you as no good, or maybe, like I said, it can be a spouse or a partner or friend, a co-worker or a boss. And this person, no matter what you do, no matter what your intentions are, they're always trying to criticize you. And so you experience numerous conflicting emotions in a relationship. And if you have seen my video about the Crazy Eight, in which I talk about toxic relationships, the interesting thing is that there are different kinds of attachment, and a lot of the attachment with narcissistic personality disorder seem to be codependent personality. So there's always sort of like an attachment theory behind it. So you might be feeling sad or angry or hopeless, empty, alone, inadequate. Some people even go to the extreme of feeling suicidal because they're in a relationship or they're dealing with a person that is extreme narcissist. And we'll look about, this is the first video of a series, but we're going to try to look at different causes and also some solutions for you if you're dealing with that and you know that you can either lead this person out of the relationship, you can't leave the relationship right now, or you don't want to, or you're maybe as a family member that you are suffering this with, then we're gonna give you some strategies for that, to deal with that. All right, so how about children? So with children, what we're talking about is in a lot of the narcissism personality disorders begin in childhood. It is said that a lot of the personality when they're adult, when somebody's an adult, come from no genetics or inherit traits or anything like that, but they come from parenting situations. So the parents are the ones that are setting this. So we're going to talk about different types, but just as you know, for a child, the child feels that it's never good enough in the parents' eyes. And we all, have seen this in which, parents do like 300, children do 300 activities a day, but that's not enough for a parent, or a child is always have to get an A in a school. If not, it gets punished or it gets diminished. And children, obviously, because they're small, they can't escape the situation. Now, what is the narcissistic problem? We're going to talk later, of course, more about children and how they deal with that. But narcissists are incapable of forming real intimate or normal relationships. They appear psychologically healthy, but their impairment is a personality disorder. And as a personality disorder goes, if we define personality disorder, it refers to a unique group of psychological problems in which personality traits have potential impediments in normal or healthy relationships. Now, the strange thing is that most narcissists are unaware that they have a problem. And this is what I was telling you before, that you might be thinking that that they all know what they're doing, that they're being mean, but the strange thing is that some of them don't know that they're doing it consciously. They are critical of others and they are next to incapable of having normal relationships, but personality disorder, like we say, is one of the things that complicates matters in the fact that they're almost unaware that they have a problem, but amazingly enough, they perceive their inadequacies as a strength, which causes them to rarely seek help of any kind, especially psychotherapy, because they view that as a weakness, making unlikely that they will ever receive treatment that they require. And so it is sort of like a non-stop chain. They blame others for their relationship problems and go on to repeat their mistakes, and the dramatic irony being that they're wounded victims who will go for help. So, and we'll talk in another video about something called the narcissistic relationship syndrome and victimization syndrome, or also called narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. So what are the goals of this webinar or this video if you're watching it in YouTube? So we're gonna learn to recognize various signs of controlling perfectionism, understand their symptoms. We're gonna look at the types of controlling perfectionists, like I say, in relationships and work and as parents. And we're gonna look at how do controlling perfectionists get under your skin, and learn some practical strategies to treat with a narcissist so you don't lose yourself, because we'll have extreme cases in which the narcissist completely destroys the person that is with, either their self-esteem, their self-worth. I know that there's been patients or clients of mine that at one point or another they thought even about suicide because they couldn't deal with the situation. So we're going to look at distinguishing types of situations that we encounter, how we set realistic boundaries, and how to communicate better, especially when we're talking about relationships. And do you need professional help, or does he need professional help, or both? So we have the difference between perfectionism and narcissism. And we look, like we said, beyond the positive traits to the extreme. So perfectionism can be viewed as a positive trait when it's not taken to the extreme. And we said that self-esteem and self-confidence are both healthy personality traits, but if we exaggerate these traits, they become grandiose, egocentric, and narcissistic. And we said that most narcissists or controlling perfectionists, what they want to do is they want to control the life of others. And we'll see that this is something that is because of the lack of self-esteem or self-worth. But some of them are not aware that they're doing that. Okay, so now it has come the time to an exercise or a quiz if you want. And I'm going to give you some guidance. I'm going to give you some instructions. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to think of a hypercritical person in your life, or the person that you're having a problem. So go ahead. I'm going to give you a couple seconds for you to kind of have it in your mind. Okay, so do you have a person in your mind yet? Okay, good. So now we're gonna follow the questions. I'm gonna be asking you or telling you questions that describes the traits that a controlling perfectionist must possess. And there are 12 questions. So what I want you to do is I want you to get a white piece of paper or a piece of paper in your house and a pen or a pencil, and you're gonna put in the seats the numbers 1 through 12. And as we go through the quiz, you're going to put a check mark on, I'm going to read a question. And if you think that that applies to the person that you're thinking of, then you're going to put a check mark next to it. And I'm going to read each one and give you 30 seconds, since we know that this is online, so you can put a check mark on each one. Now, we will see after the quiz that there are different levels of controlling perfectionists. And so we want to do is we count how many you gotta suggest, and we will discuss the level and types and severity of each of the types. Make sure that you mark the questions 1 through 12, as I will be referring to the numbers later on. All right, so the first type is a conscientious compulsive. We're gonna go back to that in a second, but let me give you the questions, okay? Are you ready? All right, this is the first question. A need of perfection so great that it interferes with their ability to attain happiness or satisfaction in life. If you know somebody that fits a description, put a check mark next to number 1. A preoccupation with rules, list, organization, and orderliness to such extent that they often seem to miss the point of an activity or task. That is number 2. So if you know somebody that fits, make sure that you put a check mark. Number 3, a tendency to procrastinate out of fear or not doing things right. Number 4, a need to control the finances, schedules, and other details of the lives of those with whom they are close, moodiness and anxiety when they're not in charge. That's number 4. All right, number 5, unrealistically high expectations and standards for others' performance and behavior. Number 6, an excessive devotion to work and productivity to the point at which there's difficulty having fun or devoting time to friendships. Number 7, an inflexibility that communicates that their way is the only way. Number 8, a stinginess with time or money, miserliness. Number 9, a reluctance to delegate tasks to others, an attitude of, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. Okay, number 10, difficulty letting go of material possessions. Number 11, an overly conscious or moralistic view of the world with rigid ideas about right and wrong. And finally, we have number 12, difficulty both expressing feelings and identifying others' feelings as if cut off from emotional life, a cold and cheerless exterior. All right, chances are that you check 4 or more items, which indicates that you're probably dealing with a controlling perfectionist. Not all controlling perfectionists are alike, however, and so next we're going to discuss some of the common configurations of perfectionistic and controlling traits. As I go along describing each one, I'll probably let you know which numbers, if you check 3, 6, and 9, for example, it will be this personality. So we're going to go through them, don't worry. So we have the conscientious compulsives. The conscientious compulsives compensate for feelings of inadequacy and anxiety about their performance by adhering to rules and desires of those in authority and power. They usually describe a hardworking and they are very tightly controlled people that lack spontaneity and creativity. They like routine, structure, rules, regulations. They make good followers, but rarely they become leaders. However, when they do rise to management level positions, their controlling tendencies become very evident. They tend to make others miserable by expecting them to be just as nitpicky. As you can see, I like this. It's trying to clean already something that's already been cleaned. They're very hypercritical. They use negative or derogatory comments, looks of disapproval, and judgmental glances, because the conscientious compulsives are also trying to control, of course, the behavior of others around them, and they tend to be extremely passive-aggressive. Because conscientious compulsives are considerate and cooperative most of the times, especially towards those in authority, they expect to be treated the same way in work and relationships. And if so, for your test, if you have checked numbers 2, 11, and 12, chances are that you're dealing with a conscientious compulsive. 2, 11, and 12. Now, I wanted to tell you that the truth is that a lot of people can have several of those traits together. So there might not be a pure conscientious compulsive type. It might be a mix of a couple types. But, if you see that you have more numbers of one type than another, then that's probably more. You can probably picture that person in your mind right now. All right, let's go to the next type. The puritanical compulsive. So puritanical compulsives defend against their own urges to rebel or defy authority by adopting moral righteousness and a rigid adherence to what they consider dictates moral behavior. This type are attracted to religious fundamentalism sometimes, or most of the times really, and in which very strict dictates from behavior help them repress or sublimate their urges. However, puritanical compulsives can be found in just about any corporation. They're very attractive to societal institutions, especially government work. And the people that really get to know them, they know them as abrasive, irritating, and prudish. They're also very judgmental, and they might view others as lazy, shiftless, or morally inferior. If you check off items on your list, numbers 5, 6, and 11, in this exercise, the chances are that you're dealing with a puritanical compulsive. Now we have kind of a type that is kind of similar. It's called the bureaucratic compulsive. And the bureaucratic compulsives identify with their role or job. So sometimes they will ally themselves with the organization, corporation, or institution, and for which they work, and they seem to become the organization, corporation, institution. For example, law enforcement or educational institutions such as universities, the military, or the IRS are examples of people that might employ a high number of bureaucratic compulsives. They often cause misery by micromanaging the lives of people around them, and it's not unusual for bureaucratic compulsives to lose sight of the mission or goal. The big picture, because they get lost in the minutiae of policies and procedures, bureaucratic compulsives may be ingratiating and conciliatory towards their superiors. That means that, let's say that there is a team of people and the team is suffering something, and this person, the bureaucratic compulsive, is in a higher kind of charge, but it's not upper management, but sort of like a team leader or something like that. And it will always ally with the managers. It will never ally with the team. If they can be very conciliatory towards superiors and very demeaning towards their subordinates. If you have check of items 2, 4, 6, and 7, and 9, you probably are dealing with bureaucratic compulsives. Remember, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 9. Here we have Mr. Scrooge, and Mr. Scrooge is an example of what we call a parsimonious compulsive. The parsimonious compulsives are motivated to protect what's theirs at all costs, and their stingy, miserly, and selfish attitude when it comes down to giving their time, their money, or their possessions. So they always have excuses not to do that. They might be self-sufficient to a fault, and they guard against anyone who might deprive them of their resources or possessions. Acting as things are irreplaceable. They actually have a very high value for things more than people. If you check off items 8 and 10, then chances are you're dealing with a parsimonious compulsive. This type is not very It's not very common, let's say. Now the next one is the bedaille compulsive. This type struggle with the need to oppose and sabotage, especially in corporations, when they encounter a tendency towards inaction. They vacillate, they drag their feet when it comes to making decisions, and they keep others from getting things done or accomplishing things. While they make a show to wanting to conform to others' wishes and agenda, they might give endless rationales for why they delay to make decisions or completing projects. To others, they might appear to be tightly wrapped and highly disciplined, so they tend to see themselves as superior. But they can be very moralistic, very judgmental. If you check items 1 and 3, chances are you're dealing with a bedaille compulsive or bedevil compulsive. Now, there are other types that we're not going to get into that not too much. Is the power elite. Normally, some of these types are wealthy people that feel they've been anointed with the task of passing judgment on what's right and proper. Naturally, wealth alone doesn't cause someone to become a controlling perfectionist. This subtype comes from upper class society, having been born with the proverbial silver spoon in their mouths, educated at elite prep schools, Ivy League universities, and so they tend to have a very judgmental nature and need to control others. They tend to treat everyone as their subordinates, like servants, and be controlling boss around. But that comes from, obviously, parenting. So it doesn't mean that because somebody's wealthy, and this is my own belief, but I don't believe that because somebody's wealthy, it can be somebody's wealthy what they are means. We see this a lot in the new generations that are coming, in which parents do a lot for children. And I remember this saying that says, if parents do a lot for children, they will do nothing for themselves. It can be others, such as religious zealots, professionally bound controlling perfectionists, and these ones, normally controlling perfectionists are attracted to particular professions, and this shouldn't be a surprise. Bureaucratic professions, politics, administrators, attorneys, accountants, and techies are controlling perfectionists. Because of their professions, they are demanded to pay attention to rules and regulations and attention to detail. So these traits can get very carried over when we're talking about other types. Now, what are the causes? Why somebody you can have, for example, and we see this, if you're a parent, you can have 3 children, and 2 are not controlling perfectionists, but one of them is, for example. Or, you've been dating and you have never encountered a controlling perfectionist, all of a sudden you're dating one. This can happen anywhere, right? At work, you always get along with everybody, and all of a sudden somebody that's at work is doing this to you. So where does it come from? So we know that genetic or hereditary theories seem to be abound for many psychiatric disorders, but in this case, that is not the case when it comes down to controlling perfectionism or narcissism. So most theories they look at parenting style as being the culprit when it comes down to setting the stage for this type of personality disorder. However, we also consider situational causes or environmental causes or trauma, which can, we should consider anxiety. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but anxiety, irrational beliefs, and environment can do a lot for some of the causes of narcissism. Now, children of over-controlling parents learn early on to avoid punishment by staying within the boundaries of what's considered acceptable behavior, because they're punished for wrong behaviors but not praised for the right ones. So they often learn what not to do. Now, Erik Erikson, which is a psychosocial theory of development in 1950, he said that the children may be more likely to have difficulty with tasks that involve exercising autonomy, initiative, and industry because they are concerned about the behaviors that need to be avoided. So experience is teaching children over controlling parents that in order to please mom and daddy, they must do everything right or perfectly. They can't make any mistakes and they must maintain self-control. So what is the impact in adulthood? Which is normally when we start seeing these behaviors. As children mature, they get from this experience that it is important to follow the rules, to obey authority, and otherwise they'll feel shame, guilt, and tremendous self-doubt. So when they grow up, they feel that since their parents were controlling of them, now they have to be controlling of others. This is also called identifying with the aggressor. So they become exactly like their over-controlling parents, and they start having tendency for anxiety, in which the truth is that controlling perfectionism is nothing more than deep-rooted anxiety. I know everybody wants to blame the narcissist, but we sometimes have to look at the environmental factor and the causes. People who feel inferior or have self-doubt about their credibility or their adequacy may respond to these insecurities by trying to control others. This helps them modulate their anxious feelings. However, of course, if you are in a relationship in which you feel that that person is destroying your self, image, your self-worth, then I will always recommend, if you know for sure that you're in a relationship like that you exert yourself and try to use some of the strategies if you don't want to leave the relationship. And if you're in a very strange situation, the best thing is always leave the relationship. Now, Albert Ellis, the founder of a school of psychotherapy called Rational Emotive Therapy, had an interesting theory in 1979 in which he stated that a lot of much of people's psychological and emotional distress is caused by trying to adhere to certain irrational beliefs. An example of an irrational belief is that controlling perfectionists commonly subscribe to is the idea that one should be competent, adequate, achieving in all possible respects, in order to consider oneself worthwhile. Also, Ellis concluded that to pursue this illusory goal of perfection resulted in a self-definition that was entirely dependent on external or extrinsic achievements rather than intrinsic value of self-worth. Another irrational belief that we feel very much underlines the controlled perfectionist is the idea that certain people are bad, they're wicked or villainous, and that they should be severely blamed and punished for the villainy. This belief naturally speaks to the moralistic, highly dogmatic, controlling perfectionist, the puritanical compulsive described earlier. Ellis and Harper in 1984 had another irrational belief that, for example, you have heard this before, it's awful when people don't behave or do as we want them to. So this irrational belief speaks to the need to control others. So all of these irrational beliefs are some of the things that most perfectionists have in their mind. And of course, this is because of their past. Now, environment, finally, is one of the things that also can be another factor in the behavior of controlling perfectionists or narcissists, in which this will result in situational or environmental factors other than parenting factors. There are certain professions, such as police enforcement or teaching, in which controlling perfectionists behave like they have to adhere to the rules. A classroom teacher, for example, must be able to maintain control over their room full of students. And yet we see often that people in these professions tend to have a difficult time separating the professional and personal lives. So such is the case with a cop that treats everyone like a suspected criminal, or a teacher who treats everyone like a third grader. We also have seen this phenomenon in clergy, military personnel, or people that work in highly technical occupations, like engineering and physical sciences. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Watch my next video. The next video will be talking about the controlling perfectionist as a romantic partner, so don't miss it. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, The Real Life Genius, and don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching the videos. We're trying to raise awareness of some personality disorders and enhance the lives of many people. Thank you. Have a great day.